Umbilical cord blood contains unique stem cells which can be collected and stored without the physical risk of harvesting from adult bone marrow or the ethical issues associated with embryonic stem cell collection.
Stem cell researcher Professor Mark Kirkland is with us to detail the process, uses and benefits. And Susan Miller joins us to explain why she chose to store her children's cord blood. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's talk about embryonic stem cells versus these stem cells that we can find in cord blood. We know that the cord blood ones are much easier to access, aren't they?
Oh, and, of course, totally non-controversial.
Yeah.
Yes.
They otherwise go in the bin, basically.
And that's what used to happen, didn't it?
Yes.
You would take the whole umbilical cord and placenta and it was all binned.
In the bin.
Is it a difficult process to collect it and store it?
No, it's no different than taking blood out of the vein, really. Once the baby's born and the cord's been cut, you clamp the cord and you're waiting for the third stage of labour. You just basically clean up the cord and put in a needle and it drains into a bag.
Whose blood is it? Is it the mother's blood or is it the baby's blood?
It's the baby's.
Why is it better than... What properties does it have? Why is it different to normal blood?
Well, I don't know why it happens, but it seems that around the time of birth, the baby mobilises a lot of stem cells. Now, you can argue that maybe this is because it's to protect it against injury or provide a repair kit, because effectively that's what umbilical cord blood is. It's a little repair kit. It contains a whole pile of different cells that have got enormous potential in the future.
And basically those stem cells, just to explain to people who don't understand it, the stem cells are unique because they can become any other cell in the body, can't they?
Well, there's different types of stem cells in cord blood. So there's one type that has been used for a number of years since the early 90s for treating diseases like leukemia and so forth. And that's what's licensed for use now. That's what's available for use now. That's what public banks do. But there are other stem cells in there, and those stem cells have all sorts of other properties. So, for example, there's a stem cell called an undifferentiated stem cell, and Professor Bob Williamson at Murdoch Cancer Institute is looking at the ability of those cells to turn into lung cells for treating diseases like cystic fibrosis in the future.
So the cord blood that comes from a baby can be used not just for that baby, not just that baby's family, can be used generally?
It depends on the use. For leukemia, the cord blood is available. I mean, that's what a public bank is. It's the cord blood is available for anyone.
And there's no matching issues with cord blood, is there?
Well, there are still some matching issues. So it's not like any old cord blood can be used for anything. But for a lot of the new uses that have been under development and are proposed in the future, things like treating diabetes, cystic fibrosis, it's going to be important to have your own baby's cord blood to avoid any immunological compatibility.
All right, Susan, let's bring you in here. Why you've stored your kids' cord blood? Yes. Why did you do that?
My eldest son was born with cystic fibrosis, and
which is a disease of the lungs.
Yes, well, affects different parts as well, but lungs is the main issue.
Did you know that at the time he was born? Right, okay.
No, we found out from the heel prick test. After dealing with Cystic Fibrosis Victoria, reading the newsletter, they were offering families with CF the opportunity to have, if they had another child, to have the cord blood collected and stored, funded by Australian Unity. So saw that as a brilliant opportunity when I found out that I was pregnant again to have it done. So I took it then.
So you had two further children. Have you collected the cord blood of both your...
With my second child, I donated her cord blood to the public bank. And after that, I realised that I had the opportunity to save it for my own purposes.
So what happens to it? Does it... Well, it goes into a big fridge or something?
Well, what we do is we spin the sample and we take off a thin layer of cells, the white blood cells, which contains all these various stem cells, and we freeze them in liquid nitrogen and put them in a big tank of liquid nitrogen. And
does their potency remain throughout the process?
Well, of course, people only started storing cord blood at the beginning of the 1990s, so we've got about 20 years of experience, and as far as we know, they can be stored indefinitely, but we can only say definitely that it's a good 20 years.
See, when I had my twins, that was 7 years ago, and there was the opportunity to donate the cord blood, but there wasn't the opportunity to actually bank it privately. How long has that been available?
Yeah, the private banking's really only been available since about 2004. So it's a new. It's not competing with public banking. Public banking is an enormously valuable service for kids who have leukemia. But this is really about, yes, you can use it for leukemia, but in the future we hope there'll be new uses, and not just with the bone marrow type diseases, but with diseases like diabetes, and we're hoping to do a trial in diabetes early next year.
Anecdotally, are you finding that people who tend to want to store it privately have a range of genetic issues in their family, or are people doing it just as a bit of an insurance policy?
I think just as a bit of an insurance. I mean, it's people who believe that the future development of this science will make this a valuable resource at some stage. Can't guarantee it, but we hope it will. But you've only got one chance to store it, and that's at the time of birth.
Yeah.
And
You've got a few minutes to do it, don't you? Yeah.
Where's the research at in terms of stem cell and its treatment in cystic fibrosis? At what point do you think it might be helpful for your son?
Again, unsure of the length of time that it's going to take. It's more if these wonderful scientists do discover a way of regenerating lungs, or even be able to grow lungs. I know that sounds a bit far-fetched, but for a child,
I don't think it sounds
for
far-fetched
anybody
at all.
not to go on a donor register, they don't have to wait for these things to be produced. So it's.
I mean, it's an incredibly exciting option, stem cells, isn't it?
It is.
Mark, if we were forgive me if I get this totally wrong, if you were able to slow the ageing process of the stem cell, can you slow the ageing process generally if those stem cells go into a body?
It's actually one of the reasons that the stem cells in cord blood are so incredibly valuable, because they're collected at the earliest point in life, before any of the ageing has happened, before any of the other deterioration that happens with ageing, exposure to radiation and chemicals and environmental toxins. So these are really sort of pristine cells, and that's actually part of the rationale. Now, whether that's ultimately going to be related to treatments for ageing, I couldn't answer for sure. I wish it would, but...
It's fair to say that the potential is extraordinary, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it has to be recognised that these are about future developments, and but people have to make a commitment, if you like, to what is not yet on the table, because these treatments are not tomorrow, they're not next week, they're 3 years away, they're 5 years away. But having said that, at the moment in the US there are trials happening in cerebral palsy using children's own cord blood. There's a trial in diabetes. There's another one about to start in Houston looking at children with traumatic brain injury whose cord blood has been stored. So these things are all happening now, and we would believe that some of these uses will become available in the not too distant future.
How different is a bone is extraction, through bone marrow? How different is that?
Well,
it's quite painful, I know that.
Yeah, I think the real point is that the populations of cells we get in cord blood are somewhat different from the ones we get from bone marrow later on in life. It really is one opportunity to get a group of cells, and it's not just stem cells, I'd have to say. There's other cells like immune cells that are going to, I think, turn out to be very, very valuable in the long run.
Really? Explain why.
Well, the potential treatment for diabetes is about undoing the autoimmune process that destroys the insulin-producing cells. And what seems to happen is that the cord blood cells can sort of reset the immune system to an earlier stage before the autoimmune disease. And it certainly happens in animal models, and they've now got evidence in the first human trial that that's the case as well.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? Phenomenal, yeah.
Simply, how is it done? If you want to store your cord blood?
Yeah.
You ring up a private cord blood banking company, and we will come and arrange for the collection. Australian Stem Cell Healthcare will come and get a collector, or the obstetrician will do it for you. Yeah. And we do everything. We provide a collection kit, and we arrange transport to the laboratory and store it.
How long, just cost-wise, how much does it cost to store it year after year?
Well, most people do it as a one-off fee, which is about $3,000, and that covers 18 years.
18 years,
which is not a lot for 18 years. It's about a cup of coffee a day.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the, as you said, it's one of those things you can't go back and change your mind and get later. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in. Best of luck.